The movie begins with a man in an orange jumpsuit, running through the Irish forest. It seems like he is trying to escape from something, and while running, he comes across a sign saying, "Point of no return." As he looks up at the setting sun, he mumbles to himself, "I need to keep running, gotta get out," and picks up his pace. But as it gets darker, he arrives at the same sign. He realizes he has been running in circles and the sun has already set. All the birds start to leave from above and he looks around, scared, clearly looking out for something in the woods. He starts to climb a tree, but a crow suddenly startles him and he falls, fracturing his legs. He sees his backpack and crawls towards it, takes his knife out and waits with blood dripping from his face, looking around frantically. Suddenly he hears some unworldly low growl and looks at the sound's direction. He keeps looking and suddenly something grabs his legs and pulls him away into a large hole, his screams echoing through the forest. Mina, an American living in Ireland, works at a pet shop and is struggling over the death of her mother from an accident she caused as a child, becoming estranged from her twin sister in the process. She is tasked by her boss to deliver a valuable bird, a golden conure, to a zoo near Belfast. Mina names the bird Darwin, and shares her guilt with him as she brings him home. She also tells Darwin about how she likes to dress up and be someone else sometime, just to get away from who she really is. Next morning, they start their journey towards Belfast. On the road while taking gas, Mina listens to a voice message from her sister, urging her to reconcile and come to their mother's death anniversary, but she ignores it with tears welling in her eyes. Driving into a vast forest, Mina's car suddenly starts to malfunction, with strange sounds coming from the radio. When the sounds reach a high pitch, the car brakes, stranding her in the forest. She comes out and sees the same point of no return sign from the beginning of the movie, planted beside the path. She explores the forest with Darwin, but he is visibly frightened, trying to peck his way through the cage. Mina calls out for help but nobody answers. When she tries to go back to the car, she finds the car missing. She frantically runs around but it's nowhere to be seen. She sits down to rest watching the sun go down, but all the birds start to flee as the sun sets. The ground starts shaking violently and she is visibly spooked, but suddenly she sees an old woman watching her. After hearing inhuman noises in the forest, she follows the old woman, Madeline, to a bunker-like building. Upon entering the bunker, nicknamed the Coop, Mina meets the other two occupants of the bunker, Ciara and Daniel. Madeline explains that a mysterious group called the Watchers observe the group through the mirrored glass in the wall. They stand in line for the Watchers, and Ciara encourages her to step forward. Mina hears a faint clittering sound, and Madeline explains they are applauding, as the Watchers are welcoming Mina to the show. The next day, Mina attempts to leave while Ciara and Daniel try to stop her, but Madeline stops them. Mina finds there is no way out of the forest as she returns to the same place on and on. Madeline finds Mina, and explains the rules. The forest causes hallucinations. They themselves are prey as the Watchers kill anyone outside the coop at night. The signs that say "point of no return" are in a perfect circle around the coop, and if you don't cross them, you can return to the coop by sunset. The Watchers are afraid of the light, and they must never enter the burrows, a set of tunnels around the forest that the Watchers stay in during the day. Mina asks Madeline what they are supposed to do in the night when the Watchers watch. Madeline says, "Just be yourself." As they want to see the real you. They especially like Ciara's dance. Mina bonds with Ciara the next day while out for gathering food and herbs, learning they have been stranded in the forest for several months and have never seen a Watcher. Ciara mentions her husband John, who left the coop days ago to get help but has not returned. Ciara doesn't really know what the Watchers want from them, but she says Madeline has theories about what they actually want, and it is to see what can drive a person mad. Madeline informs Mina there is some rules she must follow. Do not turn your back towards the mirror, do not open the door after the dark, do not go into the burrows and always stay in the light. That night Mina was watching TV, and in her curiosity, she gets up and knocks on the two-way mirror and tries to listen. But nothing happens, so she tries to sleep. But suddenly someone starts to knock the mirror from the outside, with unhuman growls coming from the other side. Madeline holds Mina and says to stay still, they want to see your expression. Mina is horrified, but the calamity slowly passes. Next day Daniel is showing Mina how to hunt, which he learned from Ciara's husband, John. Mina asks Daniel, have you seen a Watcher before? Daniel says nobody sees a Watcher and lives to tell the tale. Mina doesn't trust Madeline and goes straight to a burrow. Daniel tries to stop Mina, but Mina convinces him, saying, what if it's all a lie and we are just following Madeline's rules? Mina goes down the burrow and sees several items stuck in the muddy walls. She retrieves some of the items including an old bike and a camcorder. After Mina glimpses a watcher burn itself in the sunlight trying to get to her with its 6 fingers, she flees with the rope Daniel has dropped down. The group decide to use the camera to capture footage of a watcher to prove they are real. Daniel sets up the camera with the TV, and they are ready, playing classical music in the player to distract the watchers. At that moment, John seemingly appears at the coop but Madeline refuses to let him in, claiming he's a watcher. Kiara wants to open the door but Madeline reminds her the rules. Kiara becomes quite emotional and starts to argue with Madeline, even Daniel supports her. Madeline blames Mina for what is happening now and Mina lashes back, saying she is getting out of there and by any means necessary. Kiara interrupts them and says she is opening the door. Madeline tells Kiara to ask John something only he would know. John fails to verify himself to Kiara and is seemingly attacked while outside. The Watcher snatches the camera and takes it deep into the forest. They also break a part of the mirrored glass, spooking the group. Madeline returns the items to the burrow the next day to appease the Watchers. Months pass and winter falls. Mina reminisces about the accident she caused due to throwing a tantrum and lost her mother while gathering resources in the woods. She gathers herbs and flowers to make medicine and sees Madeline and Daniel fighting a bit far away. She returns to the coop and sees Kiara, famished and depressed, and urges her to eat something before she starves to death. Kiara doesn't reply. When Mina turns the TV on the other side of the room and turns again, she doesn't see Kiara anymore. She rushes after her and finds her on top of a burrow. Kiara is traumatized for John and wants to jump down the burrow. But they hear a scream and runs towards it, finding Daniel and Madeline fighting. Kiara tries to appease Daniel, but he is quite angry and returns to the coop. Daniel locks Mina and Madeline out of the coop at night, forcing them to seek shelter in the forest behind a large tree root. They witness the Watchers, humanoid creatures that imitate the coop occupants, and react angrily to Madeline and Mina's absence. When they rush to the forest to find Madeline and Mina, Mina manages to convince Daniel to let them in by telling him her guilt story. And she promises it never goes away. It will haunt him for the rest of his life. Madeline explains that the Watchers are a race of ancient beings called changelings, or fairies, and are attempting to learn how to imitate humans. The Watchers return, and furious with their repeated breaking of the rules, attempt to get into the coop. They start to hear various kinds of human sounds around the coop. The group discovers a hidden door leading beneath the coop and seek refuge inside the bunker. Mina goes first but doesn't forget her bird. They all go in the basement and right after Madeline shuts the hatch as the mirror breaks. Below the coop is another bunker filled with supplies and an old CRT computer. On the computer there are video diaries from a professor who created the coop. He discovered the Watchers and wanted to study them but soon found out they were better at imitating him than he expected. He explains how he built the coop with manual labor but didn't warn the laborers as they became victims slowly after the mite fell. He managed to capture one of the Watchers, separated from the pack and imitating a little girl. The professor started to bond with it. He wanted to study their power of duplication and use it to cheat death in a sense. In a video, they see the professor talking and approaching the tall lanky creature he captured, but it lashes out. In his last video diary, the despondent professor explains a way to escape the forest before requesting that his university notes be destroyed and is last seen climbing back to the coop to kill the Watcher and then himself. Seeing that, they decide to leave the next day. Kiara and Daniel try to dance their sorrow away. Through dancing they bond a bit more, and hugs, beginning a new chapter of their life. The next day, the group leave the underground bunker to discover that the coop has been ransacked. With no other choice, the group follow the professor's advice to escape, following the trees they marked before. They reach the no-return point, and releases Darwin to follow him to the exit. On their way they find a giant seal. Madeline explains how Fays were regarded as gods before, and then the humans took over and there was a terrible war, and the Fays were banished and sealed beneath this tomb. Years of clawing the ground later, they finally managed to come out of the tomb. But they realized their wings were gone. They became horrific-looking creatures, and they couldn't leave the forest. Now how does Madeline know all this? They continue as it starts getting dark and the forest showing them illusions of themselves. Suddenly it starts to rain, and all the birds start to flee. They start running. After finally reaching a river and finding the boat, Daniel encounters a Watcher mimicking John and is tricked into helping him. The Watcher, disguised as John, slashes Daniel's leg veins. It brands Daniel, then slashes his throat. Then turns into Daniel, and watches with white eyes, as Madeline starts rowing to get away. The other Watchers join him as Daniel, watching from the shore as they cannot leave the forest, The Watcher roars as Mina, Madeline and Chiara manage to reach civilization and escape the forest, taking a bus to Galway. Days later, Mina heads to the professor's university to destroy the notes. Mina learns from his research that the Watchers once lived in peace with humanity, but a war broke out and they were forced underground and sealed in. She also learns about half-human and half-Watcher hybrids, able to explore the world during the day. She finds a tapestry depicting the love between humans and Fae, but she finds something more intriguing, something that shakes her. Mina visits Chiara at her home and shows her the set of photos she found in the office, revealing that Madeline was the professor's wife who passed away of lung cancer before he entered the forest. Mina realizes the Madeline they know as the Watcher that the professor managed to capture in the bunker. They wait for Madeline to come get them. But surprisingly, the real Sierra arrives at the house as the Sierra that Mina was talking to reveals herself to be Madeline. Madeline cycles through forms of Shira, Madeline, John and Daniel before knocking Chiara unconscious and attacking Mina. Madeline reveals that she had always wanted to escape the forest and plans to imitate Mina. Madeline violently throws Mina's heavy body around and finally takes on her own form. Madeline asks Mina to fight, same versus same, but Madeline is stronger than a normal human and easily overpowered her. But Mina realizes that Madeline is a half-human, half-Watcher hybrid. She tells Madeline about her half-human, half-Fae ancestry, and manages to talk Madeline into calming down, encouraging her to let go of her grief and her anger towards humans, as she is more human than she realizes. Protecting them in the coop. Feeling anger, hate, jealousy, and most importantly, love and forgiveness. Mina says you don't have to be a monster. None of them should ever have to be alone. Madeline comes to her senses and decides to trust Mina. She transforms into her true Watcher form, growing magnificent wings and departs. Sometime later, Mina has reconciled with her sister and her family, and has got over her own grief. Meanwhile, Madeline, imitating the form of a child, keeps watch over Mina. Subscribe for more horror, mystery and thriller recaps.